My name is Colin Mills, and in this presentation I'll be talking about awakening to matter or physical substance. To understand this presentation better, it might be helpful to read or to have watched Spirit and Evolution first. Most people, when they look around their physical environment or surroundings, just see what it is that they see. Trees, dogs, humans, walls, cars, whatever, without giving any real thought as to what makes it what it is or what it's made up of. Whatever it is or what label we want to put on it, science calls it matter. But what is matter? It's actually far more exciting than you'd ever imagine. So fasten your seat belts. Clearly, you are alive because you are listening or reading this article. The alive part of us being called spirit, life, prana, monad, soul, or whatever name you choose to give it. Naturally, we can't see this. The only clue to its existence is the fact that you are alive and able to watch or read this. And you are reading this thanks to a transportation vehicle, which we call a body, made up of matter. We saw in the article or presentation, Spirit and Evolution, the evolution of the human spirit in the diagram below. As you can see, each stage moves upwards onto the next stage as a result of learning gathered in each stage. What this tells us is that we, to be in our present place on our evolutionary ladder or journey, have been walking it for a long, long time. When we look back over our present life, we can see how we have grown from a consciousness perspective. You have a lot more wisdom than you had 20 odd years ago. Most people seem to understand this, but should you ask them who this person is who is growing, they will likely say, me. And if they are atheists, maybe add, my body. But ask them who is observing their body, and confusion is likely to reign. The person doing the observing is you. Maybe stop and think about this. When someone gets the idea that there is a you, separate and distinct from their body, pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. They also conclude that when the you leaves, the body does. Rarely, though, do they think what their body is. Consider this. A human heart, when it is removed from somebody's body, providing it is kept chilled, can live for up to 6 hours. Who is running that heart, keeping it alive? To keep this logical, we have to conclude that there is some life force in this physical form, matter, that is completely separate from this you mentioned above. If this wasn't the case, how could this removed heart stay alive? Biologists will tell you that our body is made up of atoms. This is an agreed upon reality. But what makes up atoms? Science tells us that they are made up of a nucleus and protons and electrons, and that they vibrate. What isn't too acceptable is that the energy that is generated by the nucleus and electrons is created by a spark of life. This gives the atom its intelligence. How else could it think? Most scientists will rubbish this as they have their careers to consider and don't want to be laughed out of the club. Going back to atoms, they have motion, are made up of matter, and have consciousness. That consciousness being their usefulness, or what they are put to use for. The human monad has motion, matter, and consciousness. So what does that make us? An atom. What we have here then are two separate, distinctive life forces, one being you, the overshadowing life force and thinker, an atom, and the physical form, run by a completely separate group of entities, which are also atoms. Little is known about these entities, other than that the ageless wisdom tells us that this physical network of intricate systems is run by devas, who have their own evolutionary development line and are way more advanced than we are. If this sounds like a bridge too far, ask yourself how a heart can live for so long as it does, while being disconnected from its body. Advanced medical science is starting to understand this life that I just described. Where will this understanding be in 100 years' time? When we can step back and look at this, we can conclude that every living thing in the universe operates under the same principle, that there are two aspects of life to every living thing: the overshadowing life and the life within the form itself. But there is something far more interesting to look at here when it comes to evolution. There are two lines of evolutionary development. One is our spiritual development line, and the other, the Deva evolutionary line. And naturally, one cannot function in the physical world without the other. But have a look at the above diagram again. You, as a spiritual being, started life in the plant kingdom millions of years ago, because that was all the intelligence you had at the time. That was all you were able to operate or control. The plants also had their Devic life, operating the process of photosynthesis, along with whatever else they do to flourish. And this, it seems, has been the situation of evolution from the very beginning. Each side, spiritual, that is you, and Deva, operates completely independently, but in harmony. When one side has evolved sufficiently it moves into the next kingdom, leaving the other side to continue its journey until it is ready for it to move into the next higher kingdom. This is an ongoing process. As you read this, look around you at the plants and animals and realize that they, on the spiritual side, will at some point in the distant future evolve into the human kingdom, and from there to the spiritual kingdom. Their physical life journey will then be over. The Deva kingdom, being more evolved than we spiritual beings, goes off in a different journey. If you look at yourself now and your own personal evolutionary development and compare it to others, you can see the development in the human kingdom in action. Maslow's hierarchical needs theory and Wilber et al. Stages of conscious development gives us a good insight to this development. It's observable. So why couldn't the same pattern of evolutionary development be the case in the animal and plant kingdom? But what happens when we graduate from the human kingdom? This I have covered in other articles and presentations. Our development doesn't stop there. But where does it stop? Who knows? But I want to leave you with something to consider. We have just discussed that we operate a body, and that body has its own team of devas. Would the planet we live on have its own more evolved spiritual being overshadowing it, along with its more advanced devas from a higher deva kingdom? And would there be another advanced being in charge of our sun? And ditto for our solar system. There is a law from the ancient wisdom, as above, so below. Happy pondering.